thanks everyone for coming along. As Chris said, I'm going to try and keep this to about half an hour so that we can do questions at the end. But to start off with, if you don't know me, I am Natalie Burns. I am the strategy partner here at United Us. We are a Brighton-based branding agency. Also, just in case you're also playing on Midjourney, this is the only Midjourney interpretation of a strategist with glasses working on infinite spreadsheets in an office environment that wasn't a bloke. So monster trumps woman. So I thought that was quite fun, and it's quite a cute monster. So yeah, I'm strategy partner here. I'm also really lucky to sit on the management committee and nominating committee of Women of the Year, which is a UK-based organisation that's been going on since 1955 to help kind of champion women who are smashing glass ceilings or breaking world records. Or one year we had the code breakers from Bletchley Park, which was like a personal meet your heroes moment. I'm also a non-exec at Century Funding and a founding partner of Court Sport, and those are both businesses that we have through what we call United Us Heavy Industries. So I also get involved in a lot of business strategy and business development for startups and really start to establish their brand. I'm also a Labour campaigner, so you might hear smatterings of socialism throughout this talk. There's your heads up. And I'm on all of the regular social media platforms. So if you wanted to connect with me after this, please do. You can find me. I'm Nat L. Burns on most things, or Natalie Burns on the LinkedIn. So I focus on brand strategy, but hopefully a lot of what I'm going to go through today can be applied to any strategy, whether you're working in social media strategy, marketing strategy, or something else. I'm going to take you through a bit of our process and thinking and approach here at United Us. So this is a bit of an overview of what it means when we start to engage in a strategic process in strategy and planning. So starting out with listening, learning, questioning, relearning, uncovering unity, defining a guiding policy, planning its realization, and testing your thinking. And it's quite similar to that meme that you usually see floating around kind of design Twitter, design Instagram, where you have this wonderful journey of going, oh, this is really exciting, and I think I know everything. And then a really messy period where you go, I know nothing. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm lost in the ether somewhere. That's usually that relearning piece. And then hopefully you come out the other end and you go, okay, well, I know where I'm going. I know what our direction is, and I know how to get there. It's worth saying that strategy is a game plan, and your tactics might and are very likely to change as you start playing, but the strategy really sets the tone that you're trying to achieve and why. So in order to see whether a strategy actually works, you need time. It's not something that you go, okay, on day one, this strategy works, we've launched it, it's live, it's all gravy. No, really, if you are doing this right, you're going to need to assess, well, what are your goals and what is the realistic time frame for implementing them? So if I'm looking at some of the projects that we've delivered, we did a rebrand and a campaign for an organization called Helpforce. They wanted to recruit volunteers into the NHS. So we worked with the Daily Mail to, over December, have front covers of their newspaper every day talking about why volunteering in the NHS was important, using the language of be the help force, which is part of the brand that we created. And it took us 1 month to recruit 34,000 volunteers, which equated to about 1.6 million hours of voluntary time into the NHS. So that was a very, very defined kind of campaign objective. We wanted to recruit volunteers. We had a really great channel for delivering it, and the strategy was executed and performed really well. For other campaigns that we've worked on, so we work with Aon, who most of you will know from being Manchester United's main sponsor, or sponsoring the Ryder Cup, depending on whether you're into football or golf. But they're a massive financial and professional services business, and we work with their health solutions division to come up with a big idea across the EMEA region that would really help kind of connect businesses to concepts around well-being. And what we found through our research was that there was a kind of new breed of organizations who we called the Rising Resilient. And we came up with a campaign strategy and activation plan to bring the Rising Resilient to fruition right at the moment where the pandemic started. So our research went into field the week of lockdown. So we very quickly got on the phone to GWI and said, we really need to add some extra questions in here because there's a really great opportunity for this campaign to sing. So the planning and the creation and formulation of that strategy, the campaign plan, took about 6 to 8 months from start to the point of actual activation. And then from 6 months on from activation, it generated a £72 million pipeline for Aon. So not bad. I really wish we'd gone for a performance-based pricing model on that project, but alas, you live and you learn. So that was a real success, but 6 months to that kind of figure. And since then it's rolled out in different territories. So North America and APAC. So we've been really seeing that campaign grow over a much longer period of time. It's been interesting to kind of go back and analyze its performance, and particularly given the changes in the way that people work and engage and the way that businesses are having to operate. And now the recession is interesting to keep going back and looking at those tactics that we implemented and working out how do we amend them, how do we redeploy them in a way that's going to keep this campaign relevant. For London Irish, we were their brand partners for a few years and worked with them to help them move from their Reading Stadium back into London. That involved a repositioning of the brand, the creation of what we called the Exile Nation. And really one of our main aims was to help increase season ticket holders and to lower the average age. But in order to really see the effect of that, we had to look at a year's worth of data. We had to really start to see that trend emerging as it went through. So brand awareness, perception, you're going to need at least a year. You've got to be thinking way ahead. How are you going to measure it? How are you going to look at your tactics? How are you going to look at the success of your strategy and measure it over a longer period of time? For business strategy, you're probably going to need longer. I mean, 5 to 10 years is a good place to be thinking for business strategy. Obviously, things are evolving really quickly. All the time. We live in a world that's pretty volatile, particularly with the development of new technologies. I've already mentioned, AI through my little Mid-Journey monster, but AI is a big thing that everyone should be engaged with and looking at, along with a lot of other emerging technologies. And when you are putting together a business strategy, it's really important to kind of start to think through that futures cone. What happens if? What happens when? So that you can start to make sure that you're putting the right processes, the right operations, the right creative approach in place that's going to last you through that journey. I always think a really good example is like, no one is going to go around and change the McDonald's arches. So if we're looking at brand strategy, no one's going to change those golden arches. They might refine them, but the golden arches are not going to disappear anytime soon because they've built up so much brand equity over time. Now you have campaigns that are just taking segments of them because it's so recognizable. And that's the kind of long-term thinking that you need to employ when you're looking at brand strategy. I'm going to just do a little word on frameworks because everyone loves a framework, and yes, frameworks are great, but I've seen a lot of people talk about strategy and particularly brand strategy, and they just go, you do a framework and it's all good. This is the only framework that you need. And I don't really prescribe to that thinking. I think that, and we don't across United Us, none of our team are wedded to one framework. Frameworks aren't strategies. They're very much tools to help you create a strategy. And there's not a single framework that's going to be right for every project every time. Every project that I've mentioned already has a really different audience set. It's got a really different group of stakeholders. It's got a really different goal that we're trying to achieve. Brand is not always just about developing something that looks good, but it might be something that is helping the business to attract and retain talent. It might be something that's helping the business open itself up to new markets. All of those things require a different way of interrogating your thinking, and frameworks can help you do that. So it's important to know what tools are available to you and how and when to use them. So some of my favorite tools, in case you aren't using loads of tools at the moment or aren't engaged in frameworks right now, always love a SWOT analysis, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses and threats, PESTLE, Porter's 5 Forces, play to win, get to buy, the value proposition canvas or jobs to be done, Wardley mapping if I want to really deep dive into something, and that will take a long time. At the lighter end of the scale, a nice competitor analysis 2x2 is always great. And Mark Pollard's problem insight advantage strategy is also a really great framework for testing your thinking. So usually over the course of a project, the first thing that our team will do is start to think about, okay, well, what are the tools here or outside of these this particular list that's really going to help me test my thinking and understand where we're going and what the challenge is and how to overcome some of the obstacles that might be in our path. So where the fuck do you start? Is it all right to swear on here, Chris? I should have checked that beforehand.
You wouldn't be the first.
Right. Awesome. So the first thing that we always do is listening. Hopefully that is obvious to a lot of you, not just listening to the brief that comes in, but listening to the things that aren't being said in the brief. What is behind the brief? What's the motivations behind it? What's driving the need for this work? I've received so many briefs in my career that are businesses coming to us and saying, I really need an app. Do you really need an app? What is the motivation for needing an app? What is the motivation for needing a rebrand? What is driving it? What are you actually trying to achieve? I think the other interesting thing to listen out for is where the client thinks they are right now, because it's really hard. For anyone that's ever tried to write about themselves in any capacity, you'll know how difficult it can be to have a really honest, introspective dialogue. It's really difficult to know who you are or what you're doing when you're in it and living it every day. And it's the same for a lot of our clients. If they could do it, they probably wouldn't come to agencies most of the time. So where does the client think that they are now? What is their context and their perception of that? And is that the same as what the rest of their team think and experience? And is that the same as what their clients think and experience? We've had projects that we've worked on where clients are saying, oh, I'm really good at X. I think our clients bias for X. And then we speak to their clients and their clients say, no, it's all about Y. It's, the client might be saying, I think that we just get bought because we're, we've got the best price in the market. And someone might say, well, actually, no, it's because, you have a particular market industry insight that I don't get from any of my other providers, or perhaps it's a relationship oriented thing. So understanding not only what the client thinks they know, but what people around them really feel and think about that positioning. And it's also worth, I mentioned earlier, listening to what's not being said. It's also who's not in the room and what are they not saying. Sometimes you engage with clients and you find out that, there's a lot of internal politics that they're dealing with. And part of, particularly when we're looking at, rebrands or business strategy, understanding what those stakeholder context is incredibly important to this overall success of a campaign or a brand. You can't come in as an agency and say, I think this is where you need to go as a business, if you haven't already done that work to go, well, actually, I know that the founding team want to go off in this direction, or that they're thinking about selling a portion of the business. All of that extra context is invaluable particularly when you're building a new brand from scratch. Then we get into learning. So what is this business? So you think you've got a good idea of the people involved, the stakeholder mix, where they want to get to, what their aspirations are, what they think their challenges are. Then it's really about understanding that business context. So as an agency at United Us, we work across lots of different industries. So one day I might be diving into financial services or private equity, and another day I'll be working with the RSPCA, and then the next I'll be working with a neurodiversity directory. So it's a real range. So I'm definitely not a subject matter expert in any given industry, but for every project, I kind of need to be. So a lot of what we're doing right at that starting point is to understand the context of their industry, of their business. And I'm going to say it, there are lots of really great AI tools out there at the moment, like ChatGPT, that can start to help you understand that context. It's definitely not we've just been developing a whole bunch of internal studio policies around the use of those AI tools. which I'm happy to talk a little bit about. But they're not going to provide you with all of the answers, but they might start to help you get there. It's really about crafting the right questions to ask and understanding the limitations of their sources. So what is this business? Where does it create value? And who is it creating value for? Does it behave like other businesses in this space? So really trying to get into that competitive landscape and looking at the structure of their team, how they operate, not just going, okay, well, what does this visual identity look like? Or what is the language being used on the verbal identity side of things, but understanding how they're supporting that. What are the systems and processes and people who are in place to keep that working and to make it a success? You know, it's all well and good. I've seen lots of projects that we've picked up where a client has worked with a really great creative agency. They've got a really outstanding brand concept that they just can't bring to life because they don't have the people or the processes in place to realize it. And that's so like disheartening for a designer to go in, well, anyone in our team to come up with a really fantastic concept that we just can't implement. So understanding the context of the behavior of the businesses that we work with and their structures is really important, because it helps us go, okay, well, I know that they are using Canva for this, or I know that they've got a design team who are using Adobe Suite. Let's accelerate that. Let's try and make these processes better or smoother, or how can we help them level up and not just be reliant on coming back to us as a design agency. Who are they speaking to? Who aren't they speaking to? Who else is in this type of business, and how might this business need to change over time? And that's one of those things where you kind of need to start thinking about a bit of a futures cone exercise. So if you're not familiar with the futures cone, if you literally just Google futures cone, you'll see the diagram, but it's about understanding what the likely realities are for that business. So what is going to occur that might change their course? And question. So you've understood the stakeholders, you understand the motivations, you think you have an idea of what their business is, what their needs are, what they're trying to achieve, what their goals are. You're going to be asking a lot of questions, and those questions will likely lead to a lot more questions. And for a while, it will feel like you're following the Mad Hatter down the rabbit hole. And we have a lot of people in our team who say, all right, I'm going dark. And you know that they are falling down that rabbit hole. They're following a question stream and seeing where it takes them. It's worth saying that no question is too dumb, but you do have to find the right audience for it. I'm definitely not advocating going to your client for 50 questions a day saying, can you tell me a little bit more about this? Can you tell me a little bit more about this? I don't really understand private equity. That obviously could lead to a lot of problematic relationships with your clients. So what I would say is it's a really great idea to find your dueling buddy, someone in your team who can really help you test your thinking, who you can have that really constructive and critical dialogue with. You know, sometimes there might be ideas that come into your head where you go, well, you know, I've seen that in the competitive landscape, there's lots of people over here doing this, and I think our client can do this. Actually talking that through with someone in your team is so valuable. And for a while, it might feel like that's a really tense conversation because you're battling through those ideas together, but you're fleshing them out as well. And you're also getting to the point where, you know, that constructive dialogue is going to help you when it comes to actually presenting that to the client, because you've already gone through all of those questions. So massive shout out to all of the people in the United Us team who I and other members of the team are turning to regularly to just be like, I have a question. Can you sense check this for me? Does this actually make sense? And that dialogue is so important. And whether it's happening over Slack or whether it's happening just, you know, casually turning to someone in the studio, as long as you're doing it, as long as you're not kind of operating in a vacuum, I think that, you know, I'm not surprised that all of the Mid-Journey generated images for strategists working on spreadsheets is like a solo man in, you know, a boardroom with the door closed, because that is a lot of the picture of what strategy or the strategic process looks like that we've been fed for a really long time. And some of the best books on strategy are written by men who operate in that way. But actually, a lot of them also do talk about having at least one other person that they can talk to, that they can think through things with, and really test and challenge their thinking. And that is so important. So having people around you that you can do that with, really important. And if they are a diverse group of people, even better, because then they'll come at you with completely different perspectives than the one that you might be approaching the challenge with. So after all of that intense questioning, there's often a period of relearning. So what you thought you knew about the business, when you get into that dialogue with your team about, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking, this is where this could go, there's a period of relearning. And if you're not relearning, then, and it all feels a bit too safe, then a good thing to do is start to ask yourself, okay, well, what are the opportunities? What are the obstacles? Like, I need to make this a bit more exciting. What else is going on in the comparator space that I could be drawing reference from? Are there businesses that I haven't looked at in the competitive sphere that are totally different, but actually there's something in there that's really interesting? So really start to relearn what you think you know. Think laterally. And sprinkle in some plot ninjas. So I really like this exercise. If anyone isn't familiar with it, it's a concept that's come out of National Novel Writing Month, which is an American initiative. Throughout November, it encourages you to get the starter for 10 of your first book down, which is roughly writing 3,666 words a day, every day for the whole month of November. So it's a lot. And usually when you start that writing process, and this is true for any kind of form of writing, you'll get to a point where maybe you get bored of what you're writing. Maybe you feel like you've deviated from where you thought things were going at some point. Or maybe it's you're just not sure where to go next. So at that point, the National Novel Writing Month team suggest give yourself a plot ninja. And if you're writing a story, it means, okay, well, now start writing saying a ninja comes in and they start messing things up. Whatever your story is, even if it's a non-fiction story, plot ninja comes in and they start messing things up and you have to keep writing. So it allows you to keep the momentum going and keep thinking things through. So when you're creating a strategy, if you get to the point where you feel a bit lost, maybe that's the time to add in your version of a plot ninja. And that might be, okay, well, if this business didn't exist tomorrow, what would happen? It might be the chief exec dies. What happens then? And it doesn't always have to be a catastrophe. That's just where my brain goes. But those things can really help you to start thinking through some of the bigger picture challenges that might face the business, and think a bit more creatively about what you're creating and the strategy that you're putting in place. So once you've done all of that, then really it's about finding unity. So hopefully by this point, you'll have been really strengthening an idea that might have been percolating for a while. But now it's really about pulling it all together and going, well, this is in our case, it's the brand thread, that united thread that's going to attract customers in, that's going to attract and retain employees. That also, from a brand perspective, we're also looking at making sure that our brands feel like they are full of a human truth that the internal team can rally around and believe in as well. Something that people actually want to wear on their clothes because they're proud of it and they feel an affinity towards it. So what is that united idea? That is your guiding policy. That's the strategy, that driving direction that's founded in truth and ambition. And then you actually need a tactical plan to make it happen, because strategy isn't just going, okay, here's the direction of where you want to go. A strategy is really nothing without those coordinated actions to help you realize it. It could just be another piece of paper that exists in the bin. It doesn't matter without a roadmap to help you realize it. And you also need to understand within that plan how you're going to measure and evaluate its success, so you can update and adapt those tactics over time. So at what point do you need to be measuring things? How do you need to be measuring things? What's your benchmark data going to be? Are there already data sets that are being collected internally at the client's organization that you can draw upon as a starting point? So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a case study. This is our work with a French HR tech startup called 365 Talents, who came to us for a rebrand because they really wanted to expand their business outside of the French market. So 365. Their project goals, if we start off there, so what was the business trying to achieve? They were really trying to get greater differentiation from their competitive sphere. They wanted to open the doors to new international markets. So as I said, they wanted to move beyond just France. They wanted a renewed sense of pride that will grow with the team. It was really important for them as they were really actively recruiting. They wanted people to feel like this business had a renewed sense of energy. And they also wanted to go, this is Julie, who is the really fantastic head of marketing there, gave us the brief. She was like, I want to go from HR to rockstar. And by that, she really meant, you know, I think a lot of us, when we hear the term HR, we think, you know, that annoying person that's going to tell us, you know, here's the policy, here's some contracts to sign. Yes, I will approve or I won't approve your holiday allowance. And she really wanted to move way ahead of that. So thinking about people who are, you know, chief people officers, culture officers, people who are much more ingrained in the humanity of a business rather than just the processes and the policies. And that was really her target audience and where she wanted to move the business closer to. So we did all of that process that I talked about at the beginning, and our key findings were these 5, which I'll just take you through. I appreciate it's a lot on screen, so I'm going to read through them. So finding 1 was that their brand awareness was under threat from multiple angles. I'm sure some of you might have gathered that calling something 365 can be quite challenging. There are lots of businesses called 365 something, one of them owned by Bill Gates. So that is difficult. So on top of that, because they are a French organization, they who work internationally, they called themselves 365 talents, as well as 365 talents, as well as 365 talents. So when they verbally talked about the business and when they wrote about it, they wrote it in different ways and to different audiences. So there was a real inherent inconsistency with just how they were presenting their brand name. So finding 1 was if they wanted to make sure that they're establishing some kind of internationally focused brand equity, that even when they are operating in France, they need to be referring to their business as 365 talents, not 365 talents. None of that. That's a mouthful, particularly as a non-native French speaker. Finding 2 was with the HR tech marketplace more saturated than ever. Their positioning needed to be crystal clear with everyone that interacts with them, what their strongest differentiator was. And what was really fascinating was that when we first started working with 365 talents, like a lot of organizations, they said, we're AI enabled. And we were like, okay, are you actually AI enabled? What do you do? Or is it just an algorithm? What's the interest here? And once we got really into the product and had demos and talked through it and looked at the competitive landscape, we realized that actually there's this like real secret sauce with 365, which is the fact that you are allowed to self-declare your own skills. So a lot of their competitors work with enterprise organizations. You go in as an employee and you say, I'm Natalie, my skills are strategy, research, and you choose from a drop-down list. You choose from a predefined list of skills, and then you say how good or bad you think you are at those skills. At 365 Talents, I could say I'm a plot ninja. I could literally write whatever I want in order to define my skills. So my words, my terms, and that fundamentally starts changing how you are seen within your business and how you're presenting yourself, because it allows for a much more diverse representation of who your people are when they're at work. So they are the only ones on the market doing that. Finding 3, which is, while everyone agrees that skills are the new currency for the future of work, if HR teams are telling their employees, you need to upskill, it doesn't actually mean that they're going to be motivated to do it. Instead, the 365 Talents product makes those opportunities available to everyone and starts to connect that like diverse set of skills that I've presented myself at with a real plethora of different pathways for me to progress within the organization that I work with, and to see different gig opportunities within my massive team. So I might be working in the Brighton office, but actually, you know, I'll just because I have a, you know, I'm a great dog walker or dog whisperer, I'm seeing an opportunity to get involved in a project that's in Mumbai or somewhere else. So it starts to make those connections that you otherwise wouldn't see. And that's what's really exciting about that kind of future of skills development, is that it allows people to feel a lot more connected and really get into where they want to go. Finding 4, I mentioned everyone says that they are AI enabled, and particularly now, I think it will be a really interesting space to kind of watch the shift as to whether people who were saying they're AI enabled but are actually just producing smart algorithms versus really AI, true AI companies, whether they the algorithm ones continue to say we're AI or not. But a year ago, very much lots of organizations are saying that they are AI enabled, and they really weren't. But actually selling AI as your value is like going, well, this is a really shiny toy. I don't know what you're going to do with the toy. I don't know what the value of this thing is to you, but don't you want the shiny thing? And that's a positioning that's only going to last for so long. And I think, it's already pretty much dead in the water now. So we really needed to get 365 to a place where we were articulating, well, what is the real value of being an artificial intelligence organization and product? And actually for 365, it's the fact that the AI connects that ability to self-declare skills to that, that new world of work, that amazing ability to go, okay, well, I'm now seeing connections that I otherwise wouldn't have, routes to progress within the organization that I work for. And then last but not least, as I said, they were based in France. They're really keen to keep growing and keep opening up new international offices. But whilst doing so, they're really keen to protect the culture that they'd already built. And this is a brief that actually comes in all the time for us as a branding agency. And not just in a growth phase, but also when we're working with organizations who are going through mergers and acquisitions, understanding how do you protect a really nice culture that you've built within an organization as you grow, or as you change, as you morph, as you expand, as you diversify. How do you protect that? So we found that the strength of the 365 Talent's employee experience rested on the clarity of their vision, talking about that self-declaration, decentralized talent mobility, employee-first organizations, and making sure that all of those things rang true within 365 Talents as much as it does in their product was really going to be key to the success of their brand. So those findings translated into a suite of brand principles that we then started talking about across the studio, and really became our kind of foundational pillars for what became the visual and verbal identity, and even the design system that we started to build with 365. So the first one is an experience that stays with you in our own words, on our own terms, uncovering opportunity for everyone, creativity made possible by AI, and a new world wonder. So starting to seed in some of that creative language out of quite intense research that informed all of it. I would say that when you are pitching a brand strategy to a client, the really important thing to do is to understand how you're going to sell the story as well, what journey you're going to take people on through the research into that vision of where they could get to, and making sure that it feels in that journey that what they're seeing is a mirror reflected to a better version of themselves, that it's something that they understand how they're going to get from where they are now to where they could be tomorrow, and that it feels like it's going to be something that they can pick up on that journey. So when we took 365 Talents through this brand strategy, we flew over to Paris, got in the office with all of their founders, with Julie, the head of marketing, with Charlie, who's in the design team, sat them all down and went through all of our research, went through the competitive landscape analysis, talked to them about some of the challenges that we could see happening across their business, talked about how they work as an organization, and some of the things that might need to change in order to better support the new brand direction. And then we went through the brand strategy story in this format. So we started by talking about the challenge, and I'm going to go through this with you so you get a sense of how we sell this story in. So the challenge being that skills competency is really, really high on the HR agenda, but it's also very transactional. In the way of traditional HR, skills are seen as assets that you can acquire, retain, and grow, looking at people as human resources rather than people as like very messy humans. And HR leaders come to 365 Talents and its competitors looking to map their skills, looking to actually have this picture of, okay, well, I know that I've got 25 people who think they're really good at account management, or I've got 5 people who actually speak French. I've got all of these different skills within my organization, so that they can start going, okay, well, do I have the skills I need for my future? But they don't necessarily realize how fundamentally different it is to give people the power to create that map together. So imagine a whole organization going, okay, well, actually, I think I've got some of these skills as well. I didn't put that down because it wasn't necessarily within my job scope or the job description that you described to me, but actually starting to give people the freedom to go, well, I am me, I'm all of me, I'm the bits that were on the job description, I'm the bits that I've developed outside of work as well. And that really starts to change the game. We talked to them about their advantage. So 365 Talents is the only player on the market that allows people to define their own skills. And I can share this with you because I know that there's not another player who can do this, who is allowing that self-declaration in the same way that 365 Talents are. And while that grassroots attitude of allowing people to define their own skills might seem daunting to a lot of enterprise organizations, the really great thing is that their AI handles all of that natural language processing, those linguistic challenges, to ensure that those skills are well mapped, that they're free of bias. So obviously in some languages, if you write that you're a strategist, you might be a masculine or feminine strategist. So making sure that those words are connected, and also connects people up with the right opportunities at the right time. So that internal gig work piece, the AI handles going, okay, well, Natalie said that she's really good at dog walking, and there's that opportunity in Mumbai to work on a project about dog walking. Let's connect those up. Let's surface that opportunity to Natalie. I'm not amazing at dog walking, by the way. I just, it's something that is on my mind because I have to walk my dog later. All of that being backed up by enterprise-grade security, progressive HR leaders can trust 365 Talents to transform how their people feel about their world of work. And then we talked about our insight. So what is the insight that's underpinning the hook of the direction that we're going to go in? So 365 Talents sits in the confluence of a French working culture that marries ambition with well-being, uncouples work from worth, and taste from the confines of a recipe book. It's an attitude that inherently democratizes and decentralizes power. And for anyone that's really into language, democracy, decentralization come from French terms. They are French philosophies. So there's this really well-established heritage within what 365 Talents are actually doing within a really progressive digital product. And the AI turns that attitude into a process, a means to career progression and a sense of purpose within an enterprise a sense of purpose at work that enterprise organizations have struggled to realize in their attempts to become employee first. So far from this kind of traditional HR, human resources world of HR, 365 Talents AI actually allows those people to create an employee-centered world of work, starting with skills. It's like this one small change that you can make to how an organization sees its people that fundamentally starts changing all of these other things. It creates this massive ripple effect. Lots more words on screen. So this is how we talked through the strategy in real life with the client. So we said that what we really need to do is show the market that the only way to realize their ambitions to create an employee-first organizations who are armed with that, with the skills of the future, is by decentralizing the very way that they view their workforce and handing over the keys to defining skill. After all, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And only through the power of 365 Talents AI in plotting that skills cartography can people really restore wonder at work by starting to see new opportunities, career paths and connections. It starts to get rid of those, oh, I'm a junior this, and then a midweight this, and then a senior this, and I can only go up this one linear pathway. By having all of this AI backing you with your decentralized skills, you can move in different ways through an organization. And as such, the 365 Talents brand should be the key to unlocking a new world of work, a world where employees are in control of your career paths and enterprises are able to instantly access untapped and unexpected potential, enabling employees, people leaders, and organizations alike to move more meaningfully as they navigate uncharted territory and unlock opportunity on their own terms. So lots of talking, lots and lots of talking. And ultimately what we're creating is a brand strategy. So there was a visual and a verbal identity that goes with this. So we also provided them with a bit of a get to buy, just to kind of summarize what we're trying to achieve. So I wanted to get progressive people leaders who want to leverage superior tech stack to help them build more democratic, inclusive, and resilient workforces, to understand that decentralized skills approach is radical because it allows every employee to see the power to map their own progress at work. And we're going to do that by showing that 365 Talents is the only technology that will finally enable their business to become employee first by helping them unlock a new world of work that their workforce can get excited about. So we took that, discussed it all as a team and started to say, well, what does this look and feel like? Where are we going with this? What is the brand actually going to feel like? So we started to create lots of mood boards. This is only one. So this is a snapshot of Miro. But we started to go, okay, well, like there's some really nice heritage Air France references of how they used to show the different places that they flew to. And those beautiful kind of star cartography maps with that. We talked a lot, like an inordinate amount about Disney's Soul film and this idea of people kind of going into the workplace and seeing their little skills fill up in different ways, or trying to understand themselves much more profoundly. We talked about paths of desire. So actually of getting around a predefined system and how 365 Talents allows you to move in different ways through an organization. So lots of different reference points from there. We also talked about revealing and unmasking as well. So there's a really interesting link between people's ability to define themselves on their own terms and who they really are and what mask they might put on when they come to work. So that led to all of this. So 365 Talents. So we took that into this place of talking about unlocking hidden gems at work and navigating your charting a new course for your people. So I'm just going to take you through some of those visuals. So hidden gems, this kind of idea that there's something that you want to get to. There's a diamond in the rough. There's things that you can't see yet that you want to reveal within your organization. And those are those precious skills. And we also talked about like using those skills as a way to help you navigate uncharted territory, that new world of work that we talked about kind of throughout the research. And that idea of revealing yourself. So, you know, really bringing your whole self to work in a way that you weren't otherwise being seen before. So this idea of charting a new course for your people at work, and the fact that Dave is made visible by 365 Talents. You can see all of Dave. You can see the fact that he speaks 5 different languages. You can see the fact that he has a dog. You can see all of those things because he's been given the power to define himself on his own terms. Jane is an account planner, but she's also ambitious. She's a master baker. She's a superstar who makes absolutely killer brownies. Dave's a people person, a computer whiz, an absolute hero who's absolutely untouchable on Mario Kart, perhaps. He's allowed to put that in there because he can define himself. So it's all about uncovering those hidden gems with 365 Talents. And here's how that looks on some of their visuals as well. So that's the journey of one project, but obviously there are lots more projects, and you can go onto our website and have a look at some of the case studies that we've worked on to see how we've taken the strategy through to the brand on those projects. For 365 Talents, launching their new brand strategy and the subsequent visual and verbal identity, and also the experiential identity as well. So how it's actually experienced when you go into the product, what that design system, those interactions, or what we call signature moments, really come to life to amplify that consistent brand narrative, that hidden gems, the new world of work, all of that seeding through to all of their touch points with their clients. has enabled them to then go and expand their business. They've now opened several different offices in different countries, and they continue to grow. So they're doing really well. But, you know, going back to my point at the beginning, we're looking at the success of the project that we've worked on with them like a year in. We're not there yet. It will be May, I think, is when we launched the brand last year. So we're still monitoring that. But at the moment, they've opened up a couple of new offices. So we know that we're already on the right track. So we don't need to adapt the strategy just yet, or the tactics for deployment. But these are the things that I think, you know, if you are already in strategy, or if you're thinking about getting into strategy in any form, having a suite of questions that really helps to test your thinking, I find to be a really useful tool to make sure that I'm not doing something or anyone in the team is doing something that is boring or has been done before or isn't going to be effective, or just really, you know, if you're starting out, just to make sure and give yourself a bit of a framework to sense check. So if you remember absolutely nothing from everything that I've just said, then these are the only things that are worth kind of taking away. This is the one that you should like photograph, because these are genuinely the questions that like we ask ourselves in the studio to go, okay, well, am I on the right page? Am I doing the right thing? So first one is really key. Can the opposite be true? So a really good example of this is I've read strategies from clients that have said, I want to be the leading organization. And they say that is their strategy. And I'm like, okay, but the opposite of that is that you are the failing organization. So I'm pretty sure that most businesses are going to be trying to pursue the same strategy that you are. So it's not actually a strategy, because it doesn't give you any competitive advantage. It doesn't clear a space for you. It's not something that others couldn't replicate. So making sure that whatever you're producing, whatever that strategic direction is not something that is just something inherent. You know, it's not the leading versus failing. It's not the you know, something that just wouldn't work if you flipped it. If you can get a flip and go, well, actually, yeah, that's a legitimate strategy, that is an alternative, then you know that other organizations can pursue that strategy. And actually what you're looking for is the strategy that the client that you're working on, they are the right ones to pursue. So having alternatives, you know, checking that opposite is still a legitimate play is a really great, you know, sense check to go, okay, well, yeah, this is the one that my client needs to be working on. This is the focus. And if you get to that question, you're like, oh, our client could do the X or Y, then you probably need to go back and ask yourself some more questions about that client, or understand its business a bit more, because usually there's only one approach that a client is set up to deliver. And it might be, you know, their design systems, it might be their internal operations, it might be, you know, their stakeholder mix, but usually there's only kind of one thing that's going to be the right one that can coordinate all of those different things, those operations, those peoples, and make sure that they're going to rally around that shared direction. Can others achieve the same result? So what is it that's going to be the kind of like secret sauce that gets your client to where they want to go in a way that others can't? And it might be just a case of, well, actually others can, but they might not be able to do it with the same pace that our client can, or they might not be able to do it with the same cost efficiency that our client can, or they might not be able to do it because they don't have the same design systems, or they don't have the same personnel that our client has. Or they don't have the same IP. So it's really important to have a look at whether or not others could achieve the same result, because the last thing you want to do is launch something that you've, you know, invested a lot of your heart and soul into, and then, you know, a big player comes along and goes, oh, I'll just do that. I'll just do exactly the same tomorrow. I can do that now. I've got loads of money, loads of resources. I'll just do it now. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. In our world, so brand strategy, we are very much looking at, well, what does this new brand strategy mean for the culture of the organization? So how does that translate into things like their values? How does it translate into their induction process, the experience for the people within the business? Because there's nothing that's going to kill a brand quicker or make sure that it gets changed quicker than a bunch of people in the office going, oh, this design agency gave me this brand and I hate it. It doesn't represent me. Suddenly, then you'll find that, you know, in a year's time, the brief will go out again and you'll see a change again. So we're really looking to understand, okay, well, what does this new direction mean for the culture of the organization that we're working in? How does that play out in their products and services? Also making sure that you've got a hypothesis for your research. So before you even get into the strategy, making sure that you're approaching it with a sense of direction, and ask yourself, well, what are the questions I really want to test out? Also, what's already working for the client? It's really easy to, especially if you're in that privileged position of being invited to conduct a rebrand, to be like, great, everything looks awful, let's chuck it all in the bin, get rid of it all. But actually, there's a lot of things that are already working, and it's about understanding what those are and then taking those with you into that next iteration, that next evolution, that next refresh of their brand identity. Do they really need a rebrand? That's quite a commercially tough question. If someone's coming to you saying, I've got a budget for a rebrand, and then you go, but do you really need it? But it's a really, really important question for everyone to be asking, because it might be that actually right now what they need is a repositioning, or it might be that what they need is an evolution of their brand, but they don't need a whole rebrand. And there are obviously massive cost implications for the client to each one of those. And you need to have a really open and honest dialogue with your clients about what they're trying to achieve and how that's going to play out, what that could mean to them. Saying, if you are going to go down a rebrand route, do you have the budget to implement that? We work with a lot of construction businesses. So, actually saying to them, well, you're going to have to change all of your PPE, you're going to have to change all of your Corex, you're going to have to change all of the signage that you've got on hundreds of sites all around London, all in one weekend. Are you prepared to spend that money? It's a really important question to help you shape what that activation plan looks like, what the actual tactics of your strategy are going to be. And then also, have I heard this play before? Is it something that someone else has done that I feel like is, just another boring play, or another version of the same thing that I've heard? And that's where those, plot ninjas really start helping go, okay, well, actually, maybe it is, but is there a different spin on this? Is there a different approach to this? Is there something within this organization that really could help change my thinking or push this further? So yeah, hopefully that's been helpful. Go forth and prosper. Hopefully you've got some questions now from this presentation that can help challenge your thinking. If you want me to share through the deck, I'm happy to do so. I'm sure I can pass it over to you, Chris. And I'm on all of the socials as well. If you want to reach out, ping me with any questions, please do.